Inaction on climate change is costly, and few places in the world are more vulnerable than the small island developing states of the Caribbean. But managing the risks and costs associated with climate change can help us control these costs and sustain more improved livelihoods. The Caribbean community is taking action. Climate change risk management is crucial, and the Caribbean community is working to strategically develop and embed a culture of climate risk management in its decision-making processes.
Given the uncertainties of climate change, it is difficult to do predictions on future climate change scenarios, which makes it more challenging for decision makers to plan or to take decisions without including those possible climate risks.
CARICOM heads had realized that the region needed a structured response to the impacts of climate change and climate variability. And this was best done through a structure, a framework that addressed or guided our actions. So we have a tripartite of documents. We've got Lilienthal Declaration. We have the regional framework for achieving development resilient to climate change and its implementation plan. This is a very important lead up to the whole issue of building a risk ethic in decision making. What that does essentially to us is help us take into consideration all the factors that would impede our progress, that would impact our lives, impact business, impact our commerce. Every sector would need to build a risk ethic in decision making to build that resilience.
I think the Caribbean climate change risk management is of extreme importance because it will create a basis for Caribbean countries to build their resilience to climate change. And this, of course, is of extreme importance because Caribbean economies are largely dependent on sectors that are climate sensitive to climate change. Think in particular of the tourism and agriculture sectors. Those sectors are highly vulnerable to climate change and have in the past been severely impacted by climate risks.
The Caribbean community is working to strategically develop and embed a culture of climate risk management in its decision-making processes. The region developed a stakeholder-driven climate change risk management framework.
You build this up with the contribution from the stakeholders from day one, from scratch. They are involved in developing the framework. They'll contribute to its development. At the end of the day, there's resonance with the framework itself, and there's a greater willingness and commitment to operationalizing it, in securing its incorporation as part of the decision-making process because it's their instrument. It is their process.
Caribbean Climate Online Risk and Adaptation Tool, CCORAL, is an online support system. How can CCORAL help you? CCORAL helps users to make climate-resilient decisions, take appropriate action in response to a variable and changing climate, apply a risk management approach in decision-making, and ultimately deliver climate-resilient development.
If you are Ministry of Finance and you have to finance a project or a program, you may want to know the element of risk, particularly if there are climate change risks related to that project or program. And being able to measure that, being able then to budget for that, see that being placed in the budget, rather than that element of risk coming up and you not being able to plan for it or budget for it prior. I think it's important for the Ministry of Finance, given scarce resources.
CCORAL can also be used by other organizations, such as NGOs and CSOs, regional agencies, business and financial services sectors, research institutions, and development partners, to build climate resilience into their decisions and improve the advice they can provide.
I think that the fishing industry is one that will benefit significantly. When you look at the percentage of to GDP from fishing throughout the Caribbean, from tourism, from coral reef diving in the Caribbean. It is a sector that is going to be impacted, and it is being impacted significantly. This tool is one that can really start to focus governments towards looking at the risks of climate change on these industries and subsequent impacts on the GDP. I'll give you an example. If you're looking at conch, Jamaica is one of the largest exporters of conch in the Caribbean. But if you were to do an assessment of the risk of acidification or coral bleaching as a result of sea temperature increase on this industry, then the risk is that Jamaica has the potential then to actually lose income from a conch cess and conch export, and you're talking US dollars millions here.
For as a ministry, I see this as critical. I see it as empowering the ministry as it relates to the budgeting, as I mentioned, in terms of the planning, and to be able to better allocate and better use their scarce resources.
I think it's an excellent tool. I think one word to describe it is timely. It's very user-friendly. So if you're a research student, you can use it. If you are a minister of government, you should be able to go on and actually see and assess risks, assist you in budget planning. It'll go across a diverse set of stakeholders, and again, very user-friendly.
Climate change risk management needs to be a way of life for everyone in the Caribbean. And at all levels, this should be manifested at the national level, at sectoral levels, and even at the individual level. So every decision we make that might impact on our environment, on our economy, on our social sectors, need to take into consideration the likely implications of climate change.
Inaction is costly.
It is a singular responsibility as well as a collective responsibility to addressing the impacts of risk. So every person who walks down the road, down the street, on their daily business will need to think climate change and climate variability and what they can do about it. And that is what embedding a risk ethic is. It's a transformation of our minds, a transformation in the way we do business and how we run our household affairs and how we run our national affairs.
Climate change risk management is crucial. Learn more at CCORAL.CaribbeanClimate.bz.